Assembly?
I'm happy. You happy?
Yes.
We're happy.
Oh, Denny?
Yes,
Got one on the side.
yes. She's just joined us, Ms. Bouchard. Yes.
Hi, thank you for being here. I just have one question. The council, given its many members, has an opportunity to have a tremendous impact on New York State's economy. What actions or initiatives has the council taken to work with its members, organizations, to create a more diverse workforce?
We have, the best example is a lot of our companies do business with the state. And with the MWBE requirements, they recognize both the need and the value of engaging with minority and women-owned enterprises. What we do, for example, we do a couple programs a year where we bring in our larger companies, our prime contractors to the state on businesses from construction to technology sales, and we work through our membership, our local chambers of commerce, the Small Business Administration, to identify small business MWBE subcontractors and vendors who can work with our larger companies in fulfilling the contracts they have with the state. So most of what we've done is look at these matching efforts. Secondly, anyone who does contract with the state knows it's a increasingly complicated process. It's an expensive process. It's a frustrating process. And we've looked at things in the procurement system that tend to discourage people from participating. And we think a very common sense one is we had legislation that both houses passed last year that was vetoed. And one of the provisions said if you're a bidder and your bid is rejected, you're entitled to a debrief from the agency to say why you failed. And in our view, the purpose there is to understand, frankly, what you did wrong. Did you miss on the number? Did you not meet the technical requirements? It's an effort we think that would be very valuable to small business and MWE businesses to understand basically how to do this. We also have, and we think this year, the basic procurement laws in the state are expiring in June. The executive budget has a provision in there that extends them without any change. We think this is a perfect opportunity to look at ways to streamline the procurement system to make it more accessible to smaller businesses who want to do business with the state. And that's just one example of the things that we would do. What we hear from a lot of smaller businesses, which tend to include MWBEs, is that the bonding requirements to participate in state contracts are too expensive for them to engage. So we've looked at ways for smaller businesses to offer alternative ways of posting security, for performance guarantees as part of the procurement process. So there's any number of ways that keeps the integrity of the competitive bidding process in place, but helps smaller business and frankly some of our larger business who sometimes just are so fed up with the cost and the uncertainty and the difficulty of doing business. We're not going to try anymore. We've got other places to try to sell our wares.
Yeah. I'm really happy that you mentioned MWBE as a way or path to increase workforce diversity. I am the chair of the subcommittee in the Assembly of the MWBE. However, workforce is one thing, procurement is another. As you know, we're being challenged because procurement participation for MWBEs is very little, very tiny, and it won't really address the workforce diversity need that we need in the state of New York. So we're not only looking to hire a diverse workforce through these small businesses who may only have limited capacity, but we're looking at the larger companies to also hire a diverse workforce. In addition to that, I did notice through the Yellow Book, pages 93 through 101, that there was no mention of MWBE at all. The word MWBE does not even appear. And so I just wanted to know why. But again, please address the larger companies that are not MWBE, and how we're going to increase our diversity, our workforce diversity with the larger companies.
Okay. Well, one, I didn't hear what you said, that MWB didn't appear where?
The yellow book. I'm sorry, in the budget, just in the wording, the yellow book.
Oh,
Yeah. So the word MWBE was not mentioned in the economic development part of the yellow book. This is where we're kind of looking at the budget and the initiatives and so forth. The word MWBE is nowhere to be found. So it's startling.
well, that's not our work product, so I can't really comment on that, but we, you know, to answer the other part of the question in terms of workforce diversity, I mean, one of the things that we hear from our members all the time is a challenge in finding employees to meet what we will call the middle skills jobs. So what we've been encouraging is, you know, through the CTE diploma process, which is now authorized and being funded in the state, through what are called P-TECH high schools, where you're devising curriculum to match students to job needs in the community, many of which are in urban communities. We do think there's a need for the state to assure that, you know, its education and vocational programs are being designed to help students meet the actual job needs that are out there. And one of the frustrations we have, and we recognize, that there's a lot of, you know, relatively well-paying jobs in the state that simply go unfilled because you can't find the qualified candidate. So we're, you know, suggesting different ways to make sure that, you know, both urban youth and others, you know, have a pathway to those jobs. You know, we've supported, and a number of our members have taken significant advantage of the at-risk youth job training program or tax credit that's in the budget, that's being significantly expanded in this budget. And that's a direct way to connect employers with youth, including minority youth, urban youth. So there are, you know, a number of
Don't forget the women.
provisions out there as well. What?
And the women. It's
Well,
not
youth
only-
isn't just men youth, it's men
Right,
and
I
women,
was
but
gonna
understood.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the Senate? Okay, well, I'm sorry.
Robin Schimminger.
Workers' compensation. Over the years, many companies have complained about the workers' comp system and the costs. There have been assessments put on carriers and on self-insured employers. And at least the comfort of those assessments is that it creates a cushion in the system. In this budget, I understand that there is a sweep of about $1/3 billion from this cushion. Is this unprecedented, or is this the custom in New York? I know you haven't been around 10,000 years, Ken, but this is pretty big, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a proposal to, the way the Workers' Compensation Board runs, it's basically financed through assessments on carriers and self-insured employers. And it's based on your activity, tries to match your share of compensation activity in a given year with the actual expenditures of the board. And then we say in the 5th quarter, there's a true up and the cycle repeats over and over. So the excess assessments of one year would be credited back the next year. I think combined they're about $1 billion a year. This budget for the first time says we're going to, instead of using that funds to credit for the next year's assessment levels, would take it into the general fund. It's, I think, $375 million over a 3-year period, and we used for various purposes. We certainly think that those monies, the current process should be retained, and those resources should be, or those excess assessment revenue should be, you know, credited back.
No rate.
And particularly where you've got a major workers' compensation reform package in the executive budget, part of which is to streamline the system and reduce some costs. So I think it's counterintuitive. Be taking, you know, $300 million, $375 million from carriers and ultimately employers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you on the comprehensiveness of your testimony, and there's a lot to absorb here, and truly we appreciate you being here today, so thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Brian McMahon, Executive Director of the New York State Economic Development Council, and he will be joined by Michael Stamm, President and CEO of Tompkins County Area Development. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of the New York State Economic Development Council. We represent local, regional, and statewide economic development agencies, as well as businesses that support local projects. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through and read all these, read my testimony, or even cover all of these issues, but they are in the testimony, and I'd be happy to answer questions on issues that we may not touch on in our testimony. First issue I want to talk about is Part R of Article 7 of the TED bill. This legislation would require projects that are financed by industrial development agencies using private activity bonds to have those projects approved twice at the state level, once by ESD and once by the Public Authority Control Board. These projects currently are locally controlled. Just by way of background briefly, in 1986, Congress enacted comprehensive tax reform. Part of that reform included capping private activity bonds, and it was capped with a per capita dollar amount per capita for each state. The current cap is $100 per capita. Our allocation in New York right now is about $2 billion. In 1987, we implemented a statute which allocated our volume cap in the following ways. A third went to local IDAs, a third to state public authorities, and a third into a bond reserve. And that the allocation to IDAs for the last 29 years has been locally controlled. The system works. Mayor de Blasio mentioned this in his testimony last week, or earlier this week, I guess, and because of its impact on his affordable housing program. So we would urge and recommend that the legislature not include this in the final enacted budget. I'll skip the next issue. It's an important issue, but I'll be happy to come back and answer questions. I do want to mention the Workforce Development Institute. This is an important economic development partner of ours. It's a labor-backed organization that partners with our members at the local level in delivering resources primarily in the training area, but also in the lean and ISO and equipment and software training areas. They were not funded in the governor's budget. However, we are supporting their request for $3 million. And given the demand for their programs and also the broad collaboration that they promote among key stakeholders, we would also support a larger appropriation if you were to make it. The next issue, the governor has included in his budget a major community revitalization initiative. He has appropriated $100 million, or would appropriate $100 million for downtown revitalization. These funds would be awarded on a competitive basis to 10 winners, with each receiving $10 million. We certainly agree with the focus of this program. We know what the needs and what the opportunities are for downtown revitalization. We think there are huge market opportunities with the interests of seniors and millennials wanting to live in downtowns that can be leveraged. However, we would recommend that this not be subject to a competition where there are 10 winners and a whole lot of losers. We think that there are needs all over the state. We would strongly recommend that the $100 million be appropriated to the Restore New York program. This is a program that was created in 2006, initially with a $300 million appropriation, but its purpose is identical to the purpose of this program that the governor has proposed. Restore New York is very well administered by ESD. We have a community-based economic development program, and when we ask our members what's the most important downtown revitalization program, whether they're economic developers or whether they're private developers or elected officials, they will tell us that Restore is. So it's a good program. We would like to see it be made more robust through the kind of redirection of the $100 million to that program. Next issue is minimum wage. Our organization has never engaged on this issue, and primarily because our members do not work with or develop minimum wage projects typically. But the size of this increase is so significant that it's going to cut across all industry sectors, and we believe will have a very significant impact on economic development. And I'm going to ask Michael Stamm, who's from Ithaca, to kind of talk about, some real examples of how this will affect technology companies in his area.
Well, greetings from the People's Republic of Ithaca. It's great to be here in Albany. And I thought a specific example would be better than talking in vague generalities. We're working with a high-tech company. It was founded in the year 2000 by one person who licensed some really exotic Cornell technology. They manufacture monolithically integrated optoelectronic components based on indium phosphide. I have no idea what that means, but it sounds really high-tech. And they bounced along with just a few peoples, but quickly moved from the R&D phase to the manufacturing phase, using local venture capital, and actually attracted venture capital from all over the United States because their technology was so good. They came to us with a project. They had 143 employees when they came to us and plan on adding about 100. They're quite passionate about hiring unemployed people and using their own resources to train them up to work in a high-tech clean room environment. They hire people at below the current minimum wage because they ultimately spend so much money on training because there aren't the available skilled workers to do that. So if this minimum wage goes into effect, we're greatly concerned that a company like this and other advanced and light manufacturers in our community that hire unskilled workers, spend their own money to train them up, have a career ladder, offer great benefits, will not be able to do that. This company was recently acquired by a company out of Massachusetts for about $230 million. It was a big win for local investors, but we're concerned that with the minimum wage increase, companies like this and others will shift the manufacturing jobs out of our community. We'll be left with R&D jobs, which are great, but we consider these entry-level manufacturing jobs the real home run in economic development.
Thank you very much. Any senators have any questions?
Yes. No.
I'm sorry, Senator Kruger?
No.
I'm sorry. I can go first.
No, they go first.
You go first.
Okay. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Senators first.
Thank you very much. So the pilot issue
Yes.
with the tax cap, property tax cap.
Yeah.
So I believe that when we had the education hearing the other day and the local government's hearing, this came up several times, that just allowing this change that you're proposing would give any number of smaller school districts some room to negotiate with revenue coming in. Is that your understanding as well, that your proposal is the same as what I was hearing from associations of towns and counties and some school districts?
Yes.
Okay.
That is our
And
understanding.
is it your understanding that then has any cost to the state of a change in lost revenue or gained revenue? It's only at the local level?
It's my understanding that it would only be at the local level. Communities, IDAs are the primary tool that local governments have to do economic development. Mm-hmm. And they're being penalized when economic development they do through IDAs, when that assessed property cannot be added to the growth factor. That's all we're suggesting, is that it be added to the growth factor, to determine what the increase in tax levy can be. So
I wanted to make sure I understood that correctly. And then you also talk about in your testimony, you might have skipped over it when you were presenting, the Restore program. And actually, when Senator Bonachek was here, he asked a question about decreased money for Restore.
yes.
And I believe that ESDC said that they thought there was perhaps money left available for reappropes. What's your understanding of the drop in the Restore funds and whether they are in fact getting out the door already and that there is actually more money to spend this year or not more money to spend this coming year?
Well, I heard his testimony and his comments, and I know that there are a number of awards that have been made over the years. I mean, you got to remember that this program really was a 3-year program, 06, 07, and 08.
Okay.
So if a project hasn't started by now, if there is the ability, and I'd have to look at the statute again to know if they had the ability to scrape that and then reuse it. If that's the case, then I'm certain that there are, several millions of dollars available. We're disappointed that the $25 million that was appropriated last year was not used.
And you know that it was not used?
It was not unused. They would have to have done another rollout of the program. And I don't know if, I know there wasn't a direct appropriation for the program, so if the funds are still available, theoretically, they still could do that.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator. Assemblyman?
Senator Kruger and I think a lot alike. She asked in both of the areas, which I was going to ask. First, the real property tax cap interrelationship with pilots, which I confess I thought we solved last year, but thank you for your testimony because you indicate that we are waiting for Tax and Finance to promulgate regulations, and your suggestion that we simply plug into the law, the language contained in that Morelli-O'Mara bill is a good one. And that is something which I think local governments and school districts and economic developers and Senator Kruger and I might all agree is a very good idea. Do you think so? You think so?
I certainly hope so.
You hope so. Second point, in regard to the contest, the new contest, the $100 million contest for downtown revitalization.
Yes.
Last year, Brian, I, at my peril, was critical of the Upstate Revitalization Initiative at my peril. And, of course, that program continued. Now you, showing great courage, are suggesting that instead of this competition, we directly fund with those dollars the Restore New York program. Do you feel that you have allies in this suggestion, or are you a voice in the wilderness on this?
I haven't talked to other organizations to see if this is something that they would support. I know our members strongly will support it.
Good.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have brought up some really great points today, and I do want to underscore what you brought up about the Workforce Development Institute and the need for workforce training in New York State. As we know, we want our children to be able to stay after they graduate, but they need to have the skills necessary in order to get the jobs that they not only want, but not only that they need, but they want. And what I've seen is that sometimes there's a disconnect between what they're learning through the school system and what the local labor needs are. So could you address that a little bit? Because I think that's been an ongoing issue. I think the WDI is part of the solution, but are there other ideas that the legislature could entertain in order to meet these workforce training needs?
So what I will tell you is our organization has not staked out a comprehensive proposal for job training. But I think it's one of the legs of the stool that is in most need of repair, frankly. I used to have a chairman who said if we can't compete on costs, we better be able to compete on workforce. And there are a lot of disconnects. One thing that I think we could do if we're going to commit to this regional council model, and I think we should, is require each of the regional councils to undertake a comprehensive job training strategy that would entail two things. One, it would entail surveying employer needs, which we don't do, at least on a systematic basis. And it would entail doing kind of a SWOT analysis of who are the training providers, what do they do, to what extent do they work together. So if we can identify needs on a regional basis and identify assets on a regional basis, then I think we can start to put together, you know, some strategies that will bring the training providers together to work together to meet these needs. I think if we, you know, did something along those lines, I think it would make a big difference. But job training, skill training, to me, is and workforce is the most important component of economic development. And, you know, probably more often than not, people, when they think of economic development, they think of incentives and they think of capital. And capital is important, but probably 70% of the time when my members are providing an economic development solution to a business, it's a workforce solution. And we need to do a much better job in this area.
I agree with that. I think that some kind of assessment to see what the local labor market needs makes a lot of sense, because so many times manufacturers tell me, I need a welder, I can't find one, I need a machinist who's trained, I can't find one. And so we're addressing those sorts of issues in my district, and there's a Dream It, Do It program and some other tools that are out there, but I do think that there has to be maybe a more comprehensive approach, so I'm glad to hear you speak of that. So I'd like to thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you so much for your testimony today.